Sean Hannity has Karl Rove on his show, and they're going to say a number of things about Obama's budget that don't make any sense at all. So let's watch, and then we'll pick it apart.
And joining me now with his reaction to Obama's monster budget is Fox News contributor Karl Rove. Karl, thanks for being with us.
Thanks for having me.
You look at these numbers, it is absolutely staggering. In 2007, if we have 893,908 returns filed with the IRS, if you break down the numbers and we look at $1.75 trillion deficit, and then you add to that what the taxpayer is going to pay, it's about $25,573.48 that Barack Obama's budget will cost each taxpayer. How is that possibly sustainable?
It's not. It's not. I spent today reading the 134-page document, but more importantly, going through the 66 pages of charts, and they are scary. They're really scary. Sean, think about this. I've got my little whiteboard here.
You brought a lot of props.
This has in FY09 and FY10, in the next 20 months and 11 days before the end of the next fiscal year, next October of 2010, Barack Obama will add $3.7 trillion to the debt. Into the deficit. I mean, he will add more, $3.2 trillion in deficit. That is more money. That is more money in the next 20 months and 11 days than in the last 8 years. And you know how much he's criticized the addition of the debt in the last 8 years. He's going to do even more than that in the next 20 months.
Well, and the Democrats,
it's unsustainable.
Yeah, because it was 3.3, yeah. and I'm looking at your numbers. They're doing 3.7 just in 1 year alone. That surpasses the 8 years in the Bush years. While by the way, we were fighting 2 wars. So
the other wars at 9/11.
Well, Karl, on top of this, they're laying down, quote, a down payment, $674 billion for nationalizing health care, and they even say it's only a down payment. They have every plan to bring that number up to $1 trillion. And I guess the question then becomes, in the middle of a recession, if you're going to raise taxes to the extent they are, spend money to the extent that they are, it's never worked before in history. It hasn't worked, didn't work for Japan in the lost decade, didn't even work for FDR. What is the net result going to be when this doesn't come in the way they want? We don't have any, spare change at that point.
Yeah. No, look, this is going to do long-term fiscal damage to the United States. I want you to think about this. The budget last year was $3 trillion. This year, the budget is $4 trillion. We have increased the size of the federal budget by $1 trillion in 1 year alone.
I've been pointing out Wall Street has no confidence in this plan. And Wall Street puts all their emotions aside. Wall Street looks at numbers. Those numbers you're showing us on that whiteboard of yours tonight are absolutely chilling.
Chilling. And Wall Street knows everything. And if Wall Street doesn't agree with it, it must be a bad program. Because, Wall Street is a bunch of geniuses. They figured out everything. And it's not, oh, wait a minute, didn't Wall Street partly cause this mess? And didn't somebody else partly cause this mess? Who was it? Right, George W. Bush, with the help of Karl Rove. Wait a minute, this isn't their $1 trillion that's being spent. Did Obama come in here and 2 years into his administration say, hey, you know what, I'd love to spend an extra $1 trillion? No, this is spent because you created a gigantic economic collapse, a worldwide, global economic collapse, and we have to spend money to stimulate the economy to get out of it. And then he has the nerve to say, oh, it's Obama's budget. It's Obama's. See, what did I tell you? 9/11, they gave Bush 9-month break. Oh, no, he just got into office. You can't blame 9/11 on him. It's only been 9 months. Obama's in office for 1 month. They're like, aha, economic collapse, and the money you have to spend, it's all your fault. Ha, ha, ha. And besides which, they lied in 18 different ways there. First off, Karl Rove says this adds $3.2 trillion to the deficit. That's more than we added in 8 years. Untrue. They added close to $5 trillion in 8 years. And this $3.2 trillion is not in a year, even if those numbers turn out to be accurate. It is over the course of the effect of those budgets up to 10 years. Okay? So he's taking apples and oranges and pretending 1 year versus 8 years. Not true at all. Okay? Then number two, Hannity says, oh, this kind of spending and raising taxes in the middle of a recession has never worked. Look at FDR and what happened during World War II, and look at Japan. First of all, Japan did the exact opposite. That's why they lost a decade. They did not spend extra money. They cared to. They didn't want to do deficit spending, which I'm normally against deficit spending. But in this time, we know that Japan lost a whole decade because they did not stimulate the economy. Shocking that Sean Hannity would have his facts exactly reversed. And then, second of all, during World War II, that was the last time that we spent as much of our GDP in government spending. Meaning, right now we're spending 12% of our GDP, if this budget passes, in government spending. It hasn't been that high since World War II and FDR. So what happened during World War II and FDR when we spent that percentage of the budget? We stimulated the economy. And we got to the point where we had prosperity for about 50 years after that. It was an investment, and that investment paid off. Now, look, I'm a deficit hawk, and I want to get these numbers down as quickly as we can. But this is the one time when you don't do that. Otherwise, you're going to run into the Japanese problem, and you're not going to get the results and the success we had when we stimulated the economy, partly through World War II. So, but mainly, the thing that bothers me the most is them immediately pinning it on Obama as if it's his fault, when the guy who created the problem is right there. He's your guest. Okay? And then he has a nerve to, I put these numbers together. Please. I wish you'd put decent numbers together when you were in charge. When is somebody going to ask Karl Rove, hey, wait a minute, didn't you create this mess? Well, I tell you who's not going to ask him that. It's Sean Hannity and Fox News Channel. So that part is clear.